In this video, I'm going to show you one of the most exciting games played at the American Cup. It's Ray Robson playing with the white pieces against Wesley So. It's played in the losers bracket final. Both players were eliminated earlier in the tournament. In fact, Wesley So lost his mini-match against Ray Robson. Ray Robson later on lost his mini-match against Levon Aronian. But the winner of this match between Ray Robson and Wesley So still has a chance to fight for the title of the American Cup, and the winner will play against Levon Aronian. I hope you can still follow all this information. And anyway, I'm going to show you one of the best games played in this tournament. This is a rapid game, 15 minutes plus 10 seconds increment for both players. And remember that early in the tournament there was a tornado alert. During the games, the players had to hide for a tornado warning. They had to hide in the basement. And well, in fact, nothing too badly was happening to anyone there in St. Louis. But well, in this game, we have an actual tornado alert. It's an incredible game. I'm not going to say too much. You will enjoy it. So let's have a look. 1d4 played by Ray Robson. Knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3. Bishop b4, the Nimzo Indian. We have seen it earlier in the tournament. Ray Robson goes again for the move e3, the Rubinstein variation, castling kingside, bishop d3. And well, here in his mini-match with Lanier Dominguez, Dominguez played here the move c5. It's one of the options, has been played in other games as well in this event. But d5 is also one of the other critical lines. And here Ray Robson goes for the move a3, attacking the bishop on b4, but before deciding on what to do with the bishop, black decides here to take on c4, hitting the bishop on d3. White just captures the pawn on c4, and now, okay, the bishop got to move. The bishop has various options. It can go back, for instance, to d6, can also take on c3, which is considered to be the main line. After bishop takes c3, b takes c3, c5. Now white has a choice between the move knight f3, knight e2, with very complicated but more or less equal play chances for both sides. In any case, Wesley So played here the move bishop e7. Very solid continuation, but white is doing quite okay here. Goes for knight f3, and now with the move c5. In fact, play looks a bit like Queen's Gambit accepted. After castling kingside, black decides here to play the move a6, preparing the move b7, b5 to attack the bishop on c4. And when the bishop can come to b7, black seems to be absolutely all right. But now, interesting moment. There are various ways of playing here for white. You can already anticipate that move by going back with your bishop to one of these squares, for instance. But Ray Robson has a different idea. He decides to take on c5. And this is an important moment because black has the chance here just to trade off queens. But if you trade off queens here, then okay, you do capture back the pawn on c5. But I would say white is a little bit better here just thanks to the control over the open file. It's not going to be much, but it's a very solid possibility for black. But here, instead of taking on d1, Wesley So decides to take back on c5, hoping that white is going to take, and then black is able to recapture with the rook and will control the open d file. But now, giving white the opportunity to decide whether to exchange queens or not, white says, no, I'm going to avoid it. I put the queen on e2. Now black play the move b5. It hits the bishop on c4. The bishop goes back to a2. Black continues developing with bishop b7. So in fact, both bishops, they're looking pretty nicely placed here, but white is able to seize the initiative in the center by advancing the pawn to e4. That is a very important move, and although this position has not been played that often, it was seen in an earlier game of Ray Robson when he was playing from this position from the other side with the black pieces in an online game against Russian Grandmaster Sarana. Ray Robson played here the move knight c6. And that's not a great move. I will quickly show you why. Because I think white can now play the move e5. It hits the knight on f6. And after knight to d7, black maybe has ideas to play knight d4 and initiate some exchange of pieces. But after rook d1, the rook is excellently placed here, pinning the knight on d7, preventing knight d4 ideas. And after, let's say, queen c7, Bishop f4, white is in great shape as black is struggling to exert pressure. Knight e4 is coming very soon. So I think white has very nice attacking prospects here. So instead, Wesley So, probably familiar with all of this, decides not to put the knight on c6, but he goes for the move queen c7. That's a very important idea because now the bishop cannot be developed to f4. That's one of the ideas of placing the queen on that square. White has to play in the principled way here with the move e5, hits the knight on f6, the knight goes back to d7, and now the bishop comes to f4. So the pawn on e5 is nicely defended, and well, if you would play something like knight c6, I believe that black is having quite a passive position. There are ideas to put the rooks on d1 and c1 with quite some nice play. The knight can come to e4, so that's not what black wants. Instead, black comes up with a remarkable decision here to give up that beautiful bishop on b7 for the knight on f3. Bishop takes f3, queen takes f3. Now white even threatens to take the rook on a8, so there's no time to take the pawn on e5. But black proceeds here with the move knight c6, and here you see that three of black's pieces are just attacking the pawn on e5. So now there are different ways of playing. This was in fact still seen in some Grandmasters games. But here Ray Robson decides to put the knight on e4 and also hit the bishop on c5. But it is a pawn sacrifice because there is no convenient way to defend the pawn on e5 any longer. But let's see. Knight d takes e5 is played. Black is just capturing the pawn, attacks the queen, and the queen got to go away. Where to go with the queen? That is the question. Something like queen to g3. It's a very interesting move, but not really clear whether you are able to increase this pressure on the knight on e5. Well, Ray Robson had a different idea. He goes for the move queen h5, which is also interesting. It also attacks the knight on e5 one more time. And well, bishop on c5 is just hanging. So the bishop goes to d4. That seems to be a good decision to defend the knight on e5, and at the same time you're threatening to take the pawn on b2 probably. But things are getting really sharp, and the move rook ad1 is played here, attacking the bishop on d4. I know the bishop is still defended by the knight, but if you have to take back with the knight on d4, then the knight on e5 is no longer sufficiently defended. So here, the critical moment of the game. And black still has quite a number of interesting options. For instance, just to move the queen away. Let's say you put a queen on b6. That seems to be a very sensible move to defend the bishop one more time. Now, if white would take on d4, you can take back with the queen, and the queen keeps the knight on e5 defended. I mean, it's a very complicated position. Black is a pawn up. But okay, white has a number of interesting ideas, including moves like knight g5. White is looking for active piece play against the king, mating threats on h7. Maybe at the right moment the bishop will come back to b1. And I would not be surprised if this was still home preparation by Ray Robson. But in any case, this was not played in the game. Wesley So didn't play here the move queen b6, but instead he played the very logical looking move rook fd8, protecting the bishop with its rook. But now the main problem is that the knight on e5 is still pinned. That means the knight on e5 is not a good defender, and it gives white the opportunity to bring another piece into the attack with the move rook d3. And that is an absolute killer move because the rook is joining the attack along the third rank. The rook is on its way either to g3 or h3. Obviously, the rook cannot be taken as it will drop the queen on c7. Therefore, black first needs to move the queen away. The queen went to e7. Now, knight takes d3 is a threat, but white, of course, is moving the rook away to h3, threatening to take the pawn on h7. Fantastic teamwork of the white pieces. h6 is played, and well, things are looking very scary, but what should white do? I mean, the first move I looked at here is bishop takes h6, but that's not such a good move. After g takes h6, queen takes h6, You're threatening checkmate on h8, but black is still in time to defend here by playing the move knight g6, and both the bishop and the knight are controlling the king side. After queen h7, king f8, there is no checkmate, black is alright. So sacrificing your bishop is not the best way of playing here, but instead the key move is bishop g5, attacking the queen and the rook. You cannot take the bishop, obviously, because of checkmate on h8. That is the main idea. What should black do instead? Well, you may consider something like f6 to attack the bishop one more time. But then the key move is to sacrifice your knight on f6. And after g takes f6, you take with the bishop on h6. And black's position is falling apart. There are no pawns guarding the king. And on the next move, rook g3 will be played when the king is in huge trouble. In any case, f6 was not played in the game. Queen e8, the queen goes away and now white can win back material. You can take on d8, and after rook takes d8, you're an exchange up. Okay, it should be said that white is better here, but okay, black also has still one pawn as compensation. Things are not so simple. But of course you don't have to grab that material. It's much more attractive now to consider playing for an attack. And that's what Ray Robson did. Now he sacrificed the bishop on h6. And the key point is that if you take that bishop, now the knight can come into f6 with a deadly knight fork. White is winning the queen on e8. So you see, the bishop cannot be taken. And also other moves, they are not good. Even if you try f6, for instance, which has the idea of offering the exchange of queens, there is spectacular piece sacrifice. Knight takes f6, check. G takes f6, and now bishop takes e6. Sorry, it's another check, and the king is just in big trouble. If you take that bishop, it's rook g3 with check. King got to go to the h-file. This bishop f8 with checkmate. Beautiful, crushing mating attack. Other moves, they're also not going to work out. Well, let me show you a couple of ideas. If you play f5, knight f6 again, gf6, bishop takes e6, queen takes rook g3. The difference between f6 and f5 is now shown as after rook g3, knight g4 can still be considered blocking the g-file. But there is queen g6 check. And after king h8, it's checkmate on g7. Everything is just losing. Also, this move, g6, counterattacking the queen, doesn't help. Knight f6 check. You're forking the king and queen. King h8. And now, rather than moving the queen away, look at this idea. Bishop f8. How cute is that? Sacrificing the queen. G takes h5. Rook takes h5. And I love this mating pattern with the three minor pieces, the two minor pieces and the rook catching the king in the corner. So very convincing line. Nothing is working. Black decided to drop back with a knight to g6 to guard the h8 square. But you can just keep it simple. Bishop g5 attacking the rook. And if the rook would go away, let's say rook d7, you give a check on h7, king f8, and now it's checkmate on h8. Once again with the queen sacrifice, black can capture the queen, but it's rook takes h8 with checkmate. So after bishop g5, Wesley So played here f6, the only way to try to stay in the game, but black's position is just falling apart. It's a really bad position. There are many good moves, but I love this moment. I mean, just think here what you can do. There are maybe brilliant sacrifices here, but all of white's pieces, they are looking great, apart from that rook on f1. So what did Ray Robson play here? Rook e1. I love this idea. Just make sure that all your pieces are joining the attack. If you take the bishop on g5, it's knight takes g5. And there are so many huge threats here to take on e6 and set up big threats against the queen, against the king. This is leading to a loss of material or mate very soon. So f takes g5 is definitely not going to work. But the alternatives are not great either. Rook a7 was played. Maybe the rook can help along the 7th rank. But now knight takes f6. That's the main idea. You're opening up the e-file for the rook with check. Black has to eliminate a knight. Bishop takes f6. Rook takes e6. You're threatening to take the queen. Queen goes to f7. And now another splendid sacrifice here. Rook takes f6, eliminating another piece, and you're opening up the diagonal for the bishop. Of course, the bishop cannot be captured because of queen h7 with checkmate, as the rook covers the squares on the f-file. Should also be pointed out, by the way, there is no back rank mate here at all because the queen still covers the d1 square. So black decided to take the rook, but now queen takes g6 with check. The queen is pinned, is not able to take the queen on g6. King goes to f8. And now, okay, if you take on f7, the rook can just recapture. So you better give a check first on h8. And here Wesley So resigned, because after the only move, king e7, you can just capture on f7. You're winning the queen, and white is up a lot of material. If you like this game, please give it a like, this video, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. We'll really appreciate all your support, and I promise to cover more exciting games from the American Cup. So you know what to do. Thanks for watching. See you soon again.